We are recording right now. I'll be quiet and away you go.
Hello, my name is Rupert, and this is my final project proposal called Sci-Fi Spaceship Interior. At the moment, I have these three logos. I'm still kind of deciding which one I like, but most of the feedback I've gotten suggests that this first one is what a lot of people like. So, the overview. For this project, my aim is to make a sci-fi spacecraft interior, like asset pack, to kind of, and a level to show off the world that can be created with this. I want to do this because I quite enjoy 3D modeling, and in one of my previous units, we did creating an asset pack. However, the only thing I really did in that was make models. I never ended up assembling it. Other people did that who understood the more technical side of stuff. So I hope to like develop an asset pack by myself. As stated before, with it being mainly focused on like a asset pack and more being a visual product project than more than a technical one. There isn't too much of a story so far, but there's a basic enough one. Um, uh, the idea also for doing like a sci-fi kind of theme came from my dislike of the project theme itself, with it being an opening stage that kind of left me to choose really whatever kind of genre I would like, which I found slightly overwhelming from past final projects, which had a more limited kind of range of what you could create. Um, so if I was to like fully make this as something that wasn't an asset pack, it would probably be like uploaded to something like the Epic Games Marketplace or something like that if it wasn't a final project piece of work. Genre and form. This, as I said before, this final project is mostly a visual uh, orientated final project, with my aim being to design and develop a kind of asset pack that looks and feels like it is a sci-fi interior. Uh, I would like to as well develop some audio for this. However, the main focus of the project should be the development of the asset pack. For narrative wise, it's along the lines of the spaceship is under attack, and the player during the first stage, which would be the opening stage, needs to get to the escape pods, and that would be the level I would be making. Slash the level to show off the asset pack would also be, if I developed it a bit further, if I have the time, it would turn into that level. Um, Past that, it's kind of the idea is it's the if it was a full game, it would be like an action puzzle type survival game. Um, However, with it not being a full game that I'm developing, some of those further off ideas I haven't looked into as much, if that makes sense. With that in mind, the story is still developed up until just a little bit after the kind of showcase level. Uh, with the main focus of the final project as well being a visual showcase of a level created by an asset pack, a lot of the technical side and a lot of the more interactive stuff is likely to not be included. I more just want to create a nice looking level to show off what skills I have. to show off my 3D modeling skills and my texturing skills. And with coding not being one of my strong points, it feels better for me to focus on stuff that I'm strong at. Inspirations. One of the main inspirations is Star Wars and the sci-fi genre itself. A lot of the kind of design choices that I hope to kind of stick with or like kind of take inspiration from is like certain ships in and certain places in Star Wars and other stuff like that. However, Star Wars isn't just like the only inspiration. So what I will do throughout this project is research into many other different sci-fi genres. I just already know quite a bit about Star Wars and a bit about similar things such as Star Trek, but other sci-fi franchises I don't know as much about, so I will mainly focus on researching into them because of the knowledge I already have from these franchises. The other main inspiration for this final project was from a grading task that we did earlier on in this final project, where we went through in groups and graded other people's final projects from past years, or other students, I mean. And one of those that I was shown at some point was like a space station, a sci-fi space station interior, and I did quite like the idea. However, I don't exactly know what their theme was, although I have a feeling their theme was something like linear space, and I just felt like it didn't fit as well. So I thought I wanted to take that's like a similar idea to that and put my own twist on it or my own spin on it. Hence why it's a spacecraft instead of a space station, and it's a different theme entirely with it being opening stage and all that. So some other inspirations are these kind of low to a lot of these are like low poly, different spacecraft and spacecraft interiors, with one of them being more high quality and not as low poly. But just that kind of idea of here's a ship and then this is like what the inside could look like. When it comes to issues and debates for this project, I'm unsure of what I could put here because I don't really know how this final project could take on issues in the industry or be inclusive to many people. As I said, this is mainly a visual asset pack of a ship interior. I just didn't fully understand what I could do to make it more inclusive or something along the lines of that, and I just feel like this doesn't really play into my final project as much as it would with other people. If I was doing something more like a more technical based final project with an actual game, like a full game or concept art for characters and stuff like that, I could understand and I would have a lot more here to say. But with it, the main focus just being the interior of that spacecraft, that spaceship, I don't have any plans to make a character yet, because I've been told once or twice by a few of my teachers that one of the main that the asset pack will take up the majority of my time, and I won't really have much time to do anything else. So stuff like characters and other stuff like that, I feel just won't be a part of my final project. Research plan, resources, and timetable. My research plan is to look into other sci-fi asset packs on the marketplace and see how they designed and developed the same or similar idea to, and to see how my asset pack could end up coming out as. I want to. Well, one of the main ways I'm going to gain primary research for like design choices and certain things like that is I'm going to rewatch a lot of the Star Wars films, plus play through and and watch a load of different sci-fi films to see how other like people in the game industry and how films have had their own like take on what a ship interior could look like. I hope to get a lot of feedback from other students throughout my project, from showing off pieces of work, or giving or asking questions or surveys. And any and all feedback I get would be taken on board for this final project. My aim is to have a 50% split on all of my types of research. So, unlike in previous final projects and previous pieces of work where I've had more secondary research than I have primary, I want to try and work towards having a more primary research in my work. So I feel like a good starting point for that would be to have an even split and then go from there. Resource wise, I have access to the college computers with all their softwares. Plus, I can come in on my days off of college and stay until 4:30, or at least until lunchtime on some days. On top of that, I do have a laptop at home. However, it doesn't have as much storage. It has enough to have one or two softwares that I would use at college on it at a time. However, they do seem to be a bit laggy, so I've currently only got Unreal Engine 5 installed on that, and I can run that pretty well without any other softwares installed. So I will try to get as much as the 3D modeling done as I can at college. But most of the resources I need to use, I can only access from college, which means I hope to start the production a little earlier, because if I need to do any more additional research, I can do that during the Easter holidays. So I might start production like a day or two early, or just play around with a few things, see how they work. So here is the timetable that I kind of set up using the Excel spreadsheet that you gave me. There are some things here like physics where I'm unsure. It really depends. If I have enough time at the end of the project, I might add some technical aspects in. However, it's unlikely. Similar stuff with the 3D 3D environment assets. I want to start producing them as soon as I can, but during the Easter holiday, I just don't think I'll be able to, and other stuff like that. Unlike in previous years, I just, as I said before, with my laptop, can't access all of the softwares at once. So I would have to keep uninstalling a software and then installing another if I wanted to switch between 3D modeling and then texturing and stuff like that. And I feel like that would increase the chance of me losing files or something like that. So, and finally, we have I feel that my main skills are 3D modeling, texturing, creating stories, and world lore and world building. Overall, from this project, I hope to gain some new 3D modeling and texturing skills, and I hope to develop my concept art, research, and planning skills further for my future career. I want to have a 3D modeling artist job in the industry, and I hope that if I'm able to, I could develop my own asset packs in my free time to help develop my own skills over the next couple of years, as long as it didn't get in the way of doing work or my college work. One of the main ways I'm going to manage my time, apart from having that timetable that I already set up, is setting goals for each week. So one week I might be like, this week I need to get a lot of research done, and if I get this amount of research done by Wednesday, then I could spend Friday morning doing some early modeling or something along the lines of that, kind of setting up small goals to help me get through a lot more work in a shorter amount of time and still be able to produce, or at least still aim to produce high quality work. So yeah, I believe that's everything for my, that's everything.
Right, wonderful, thank you. Cheers, Rupert. So I've got some questions and some areas for suggestion for exploration. I think you did a really good job, so well done. You can relax now. I've got a few things I could go over. I think one of the things is relating to scale that I'd like to explore a bit more. So just both the scale that you plan to make your asset pack and how many assets, kind of quantifiable in terms of a space. Have you thought about, like, I know you said this journey to an escape pod, but have you thought about like kind of an approximate amount of, say, panels and things that you need to make, and what scale would they be made at?
Scale wise, I don't really know yet. I still would need to look into like the kind of default height of the character in Unreal Engine 5 and like number of assets. I know I at least need like a floor, two walls, like multiple different walls. I haven't made a full asset list yet. I believe I'm still currently going through that.
Yeah, that's fine. I think that's one of the things to, like, as part of your research to establish. When you look at similar asset packs, they might have quite a few different configurations, and again, what you have to think about is when you're researching it is like what's feasible for you to do in the time frame. So you need to make sure that it's definitely something that can be achieved, and through research you can sort of establish. And again, I think it's really good that you're doing a project that is very similar to something you've done before, from the point of view that you should have an idea about what is feasible, from that idea of like, okay, well, I can't aim to make something that's vast in scale. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
if you look at examples of asset packs on the market, do that sort of research on marketplace research. I think that will help you to tie it in. Okay, so
Yeah.
and equally, like in terms of the scale, I would recommend researching that again, and I can show you. But what tends to happen is like a real world scale is used, so like 1-to-1 scale. So for example, if a door is approximately like 1.8 meters high, or just under 2 meters in a real world scenario. So if you decide that you think you want your spaceship craft to feel grand or whatever, then you want more kind of upscaled, larger doors, larger sort of corridors, so a feeling of grandeur. Equally, if you want it to feel claustrophobic and small, then you can work with that. So I think one of the things to do is to produce mock-ups just with boxes and things, and like block out type scenarios that you've done with sound before, right? To get a sense of scale, so then that can translate to the assets that you make. And the key thing is like this whole the other thing to show with your research, which you've already done in the last project, but how modularity works. So how you make these panels like click together, basically. How do they, like, you know, have you got things like that will work as seam lines that mask the seams, like pillars or whatever, you know, to help with that? Yeah. So that's really good. I think the project sounds like really exciting, and it sounds like it is being designed to play to your strengths. I think I want to come on to the idea that I know that I think it's good that you've landed on something, and I didn't realize that you were struggling quite so much at the start with the theme, but I think you've landed on something that sounds like you're obviously familiar with Star Wars, and that's your agenda, and coming at it from that point of view, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think if we talk about issues and debates, there's quite a lot actually to talk about in that. I know you sort of we're not certain, but I think the things that come around with what you're doing are largely around the idea of licensing and the idea of like kind of the software licensing issues as well. So we've got two things really to look at. The fact that your work will be inspired by and presumably will look like other sci-fi franchises, and the kind of one thing to show an awareness of through your research is the idea of not impinging on copyright issues or things like that. So if you were to say make a corridor section that was very reminiscent of something from Star Wars, that would be something to avoid. Do you know what I mean? You can certainly take influence from it, but that's where your establishment of the codes and conventions that exist in the genre and existing franchises is there to guide you, but also for you then to make sure that you don't step on or cross the boundary into like licensing issues, which would be something to consider, because if your product which you're proposing is to go on to Unreal Marketplace, then it would it could be subject to legal challenges if it was to be deemed too heavily inspired by Star Wars, Star Trek, any of the other sci-fi franchises you mentioned. And the other issue as well to consider is the fact that you're making it on a student licensed account at college, this project. So if for any example, any reason you were to monetize this, another bit of research to look at would be Unreal's licensing agreements and how, if you were to make this on their free to use account, which you can, there is royalties to be paid, and after you make a certain amount and things like that, you have to charge. So I don't, you might well never publish it on Unreal Marketplace, but you could, and in which case you should show consideration of those costs and how that licensing works when you use an engine that is free to use but takes a percentage charge if you were to sell it. Okay. Or sell content from it. Cool. So I think those would be two really useful things to look at, and that would tick the box, so to speak, for issues and debates. Have you decided on a visual style? I know you said about a number of different influences from Star Trek to Star Wars, etc. Is it going to be a clean, kind of polished aesthetic, or is it going to be something that's more dystopian? Like, what are we going for? Like,
I think more of like clean cut, like smooth edges, and a lot of like round shapes. But I also kind of want to do low poly, because I feel if I do too high quality, it might mean that it takes way too long to produce a single asset. So main focus being low poly and trying to make it smooth. And
okay, so I think there's a distinguishing factor, and again something to show in your research is like low poly is an art style in itself where it's supposed to look blocky and it's supposed to look stylized. So that's fine if you're going for that, but I think also it's like if you are going for that, it would mean that it would be quite jarring to then have quite realistic textures. So if it was textured, for example, if it was textured using Substance Painter's smart materials, then it might not look right. So that's what you have to weigh up. If you want it to look and to use the Substance Painter skills that you have, which you've shown really good strength in, I think going for a simplistic modeling style as opposed to low poly might be the way to go. So you're not having tons of detail in it, but that will enable you to use realistic materials. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So again, I think that's just something to show an awareness of, and let that be led through your research. Okay, so it will steer the way that it goes. And I think like key things in pre-production before you get too far into making, which is going to be really important so that you're not basically wasting time on producing stuff that doesn't work, is to work to quite tight plans. So the idea of having blockouts like we talked about earlier, and having level design maps and things like that. So you're thinking about, right, well, how does this piece click to this? Do I need a left angle? Do I need right angles? Do I need a corridor sections, etc. And then if you get into that, you can have that can lead into, I think, more advanced stuff. If you get that done early on, you can get the audio implemented that you talked about, or maybe some, door animations and things like this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. But yeah, it sounds like a really cool project. So yeah, I'm very happy with that. I think it sounds like a great plan, and I like the idea of what you're talking about. I think the key thing that you haven't forgotten in this project is that it's an opening stage. So whilst you're making an asset pack, you've thought about the fact that you're building something that would be for a player to get from A to B, and the kind of basic plot line behind that, which is good, and that should be in the back of your mind the whole time. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think looking at codes and conventions of other sci-fi genres and other sci-fi films, not just games, but films, TV, etc. as well. It's going to be important to establish the conventions. Can you please show me a project proposal at this stage, and then we'll just check that that's all together. Cool. So you got a student number, great. You said you're rushing now, which is good. Are you excited to do this project? Is this something that
yeah.
Great stuff. Yeah, let's have a look at section 3 evaluation methods. Yeah, stop there a minute. Blogging. Cool. Again, I think because you're making something that essentially is interactive, albeit with a visual focus, you must talk about in this section the idea of having playtesting. So I think, when we're talking about like your white boxing stage, when you're getting your scale right, for example, get people to play that and give you feedback on, does that feel like too big, too small, etc. Is the player's route clear? All those things. And then later on, when you've got a more finalized version to get people's feedback on it, then in terms of that would be useful. All right.
Yeah.
Research, you put some examples there, and then yes, good. I think you just say like somewhere in there, just say that you'll continue to add a more extensive documentation of your research sources in your bibliography page on your Wix. So this is like the starter pack, if you like, of things to look at. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Then if we can just scroll down to the time management table. Yeah, Gantt chart looked really good before, so it looks like this looks really thorough. Well done. It looks like you've got a real plan for managing your time, and you're someone who always does manage a project pretty effectively. So this looks really good to me. So you have got testing week written in, I see, in there in the penultimate week. So yeah, things like that. Just make sure that that's clear in your feedback. So I think one of the things you could do is, for example, design a survey when you have people playtest it, that you then capture that feedback on in a way that you can quantify it. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I've covered everything I want to. Have you got anything else you would like to add, Rupert?
No, I think that's everything.
Brilliant. Well done. Let me stop recording at this moment in time.